Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count.
Hello and welcome there, Ride Along Live family and crew. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of our programming today. Today is unique. Today is different. And we're taking you live today from Brooklyn. Right now, I am in Brooklyn, New York. And right at the backdrop of me right now is a protest is about to start. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. But I want to bring in a friend of mine later on into the program. What's going to talk about a few things that's been happening. My guest today on Ride Along Live, on the backdrop of everything that's happening in the world, is Mr. Tobias Clement, who's the opposition leader. We're going to bring him in a little bit. But before we do that, I want you guys to do this for me, all right? Go ahead and share up the program, share up the program and say, I share. Share up the thing and say, I share. It's Monday, Ride Along Monday. Make sure my headphones are in. And we outdoors today. Now, let me tell you guys what has been happening. Unless you've been hiding under a rock, I'm pretty sure that everyone know of the name George Floyd. Now, George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis, right? A lot has happened from the time that we saw that police officer kneeling on his neck up until now. A lot of protests. Right where I'm at right now, Brooklyn, New York, has been almost like the epicenter of a lot of the protests. It moved from Minneapolis to New York to California, all over America. The same has been seen on television sets. Now, it has moved from just protests. A lot of people have engaged also in rioting. So later on, after we finish speaking to Mr. Tobias Clement, I'm going to give you guys a look as to what's happening a little bit behind me. And it's not only at this vantage point where I'm at right now at Grand Army Plaza, it's also happening in various places around Brooklyn, New York today. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna be on the road for a few hours well today. So stick and stay with me, guys, on the program. But before we do that, as we said, I want you guys to go ahead and share the program. Share the program. It's Right Along Live today. Let me see who's already inside. Let me see who's already locked in. Hey, Natasha, big up yourself, share up the thing. Julian G, big up yourself. Deanne Fraser, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. Dalma Griffith, thank you so much. Share up the thing. Who else we have? Natasha, Stephanie, Joan, Andrea, how you doing, Andrea? Big up yourself. Say I share. The key word today is I share. All right, Lynn, put up those comments on the screen. I want to see the folks that are watching. Put it up on the screen, Lynn. Master Control. Deanne Fraser, I see you. I see who else I see. Good afternoon, Natasha and Salandi. Big up yourself. Thank you so much. The keyword is I share. All right, the keyword is I share. So share it and say I share as we take you live from Brooklyn, New York today. I'm outside. I'm happy to be on the great outdoors wearing my mask because coronavirus is still here. The media is not talking about it much because everybody is fixated and talking a lot about what's happening with the protests and George Floyd. But remember that coronavirus is still present. You got to be very careful if you're going to be in groups. And I would warn against going out in large groups at this time because people are forgetting that coronavirus is still there, still prevalent. A lot of people still are being affected. A lot of people are still dying from the coronavirus. So, guys, if you're going to go out, if you have to go out, if you really have to go out, please protect yourself and wear a mask, all right? I share. Joan Duncan, thank you so much for sharing. Michelle McIntyre, thank you so much for sharing. We appreciate you. Kelvin Morass, big up yourself. Thank you so much. Tamika Rogers, the keyword, guys, the keyword is I share. The keyword is I share. Tamika, big up yourself. Who else? Sherlyn Jeffrey, big up yourself. Burbis, I see you just logged in, guys. Everybody share. Wendy Ann, how you doing? Big up yourself to you. And I hope you keeping safe, Wendy Ann. All right, guys, let me introduce my guest today. He is the current opposition leader of Grenada. The last time we heard from him, it was he was making the move, putting things together to make that solidify. Now it has been solidified. He's making the move, or in the process, or probably he already made all the move to elect or select all his senators. We're going to talk about that. We're going to also talk about what are some of the things that we should know as it relates to the coronavirus. And on the big in the news today, we saw the bus association, the Granite Bus Association, had this press conference, and a lot was said. So, guys, to bring us up to speed as to what's happening, let's welcome my guest for today, Mr. Tobias Clement, who is the opposition leader of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. Mr. Clement, Tobias Clement, welcome to the ride. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, thank you, and thank you for having me, Mr. Bob. And I can tell you that we are pretty much keeping safe, and we pray that our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, America, Canada, England, wherever you might be, follow the protocol and keep safe despite all the troubles that we have. For everyone, it's not easy to be alive today in the midst of coronavirus and racism and all this that is taking place. But I believe as people, we will overcome. We have overcome before, and then we
Yes.
will overcome again. I'm sure about that because we are a resilient people,
Yes.
and this is what we do. We fight when difficult times come, and we always overcome. So I have hope that we will pass that hurdle, and this too shall pass.
This too shall pass. Absolutely. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening now with the impasse, with what has been happening here in the New York area and the Caribbean respond to it. But I want you to bring us up to speed. The last time we spoke, you was in the process of thinking about becoming the opposition leader. Tell us about that decision. Tell us about when that decision was solidified and what made you concrete and solidify that decision at the time that you did.
Well, you recall that our first time on Ridealong was just after I resigned from the New National Party. That
Yes.
was on the 22nd of November last year, and I look and the purpose, in terms of resignation and where our country is today, and there are many factors that you can bring to bear. Now, the last time our country had an opposition leader was in 2013, 7 years ago. And over the years, what I have seen, because there ain't no checks and balance, it's almost an erosion of the institutions that governs our democracy. And nobody says anything. And if you talk about it, you are treated as probably enemy number one. And there comes a point in time when you say, no, somebody must stand up and speak out. Because after all, Grenada should be a democracy, and not everybody should toe that line in terms of where the government is or the leadership of the government is. You live in the United States. Think about it. If the institutions that govern the United States were to be eroded, the judiciary, the legislative, the executive, then you will have a lot of problems within the Constitution. In Grenada, we practice a similar kind of democracy, although Westminster style, but we still have the three branches of government: the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. But at this point in time, I must say, because there was a government that have 15 seats in the parliament of our country, the executive moved in and almost usurped the power of the legislative, so that the executive branch of the Grenada government took over the powers of the legislative arm. For the first time in the history of Grenada politics, in the history of the Commonwealth politics, what you have happened is that the vote for the constituency offices were moved from under Parliament and put directly under the Prime Minister's ministry, so that your constituency office is almost governed by the Prime Minister and his people. So in terms of hiring and firing and this and that and the other, imagine, Keller, that
Junior.
Junior,
Yeah.
imagine that that I went and to the after 2 weeks ago, I went to the Houses of Parliament and I spoke to the clerk and I said to him, I need to see the office of the opposition leader. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Clement, you would have to wait. I says, well, as why? He says that he has to call somebody in the Ministry of Works to get the keys to open the leader of the opposition's office. And I'm thinking, Mr. Clerk, why is that so? And he said that they refused to give the Clerk of Parliament the keys for the Houses of Parliament. So that at this point in time, it's the Ministry of Works who controls the Houses of Parliament in terms of the building and the infrastructure itself. First time I've ever seen that arrangement. Not only that, imagine I ask about the telephone and everything, and all that is controlled by the Ministry of Communication and Work. But there must be a separation. Then
Right.
there are so many. I have not yet sat in that office because imagine you come to visit me in the opposition office, and regardless of what time you come, the cameras are always on you. So you're always under the scope of the camera. I mean, you do not have the, but there is so many things to be corrected in terms
Right.
of our institution in our country. It must be done before we move forward.
So what are you saying that at to date you haven't sat in that office of the leader of the opposition? You haven't
No, I
sat in
have
that
not.
office?
I have not because I mean well, it's not yet prepared, but at the same time, it was controlled by the Ministry of Works. It's only on last week I got the keys to my office, and I'm thinking, listen to this. So as leader of the opposition, I'm given a secretary. They said to me the secretary have to be seated in a cubicle outside in the lobby because they don't have no office for the secretary to the leader of the opposition. I tell him, I said, let me tell you something. The leader of the opposition is not about Tobias Clement, but it is about the office of the leader of the opposition. Oh my
Right.
goodness. Can you believe how low that we have stooped in this country to destroy the institutions that governs our democracy? I mean,
Right.
people, it is almost shocking.
Well, let's not forget that you were also a member, or still, I don't know if you officially resigned from the party, but you are a member of the New National Party. Were you ostracized in making that decision to become opposition leader? And do you think that that's one of the reasons why you've been treated that way?
Well, even if, yes, I have come under a lot of pressure from a lot of circles, from a lot of people, but then, like I say, and they have to remember that NNP will not always be in power. So what would happen when the table turned? Wouldn't you want to be treated decently as being in the leader of the opposition's office? I think
Right.
so. So this is what I say, that you have it now where you have so much control that you control your executive. Now you want to control the legislative, you want to control the houses of parliament, and it's just about a control that almost destroy our democracy. You see, institutions are very important because they are the checks and balances to rogue leadership. Imagine in the United States, if you did not have the Congress and the Senate and the judiciary branch, we would have just run amok. I
Yeah, but
think.
let me ask you a question. And I see exactly what you're talking about, but I want to get some clarity before we go forward on this. Are you still a member of the NNP, or have you resigned your seat? And if not, why haven't you resigned at this point?
Well, that is what took place in November. I resigned from the New National Party.
Right.
Yes, so no, I'm not a member of the New National Party. I resigned
Okay.
from the New National Party on the 20th of November, 2019.
Okay.
That's almost more than 6 months ago. So that is established.
Okay.
That
All
is
right.
definitely established.
Okay. All right. So about you being ostracized, do you think is because of you going against the wind and you going against basically the leadership, hence the reason why you've been treated that way?
Well, I believe probably I come from a regime and a leadership that do not like to be challenged in any way. So I expect that they would try to put obstacles and stumbling blocks, but you have to know who you're up against. And these things I am prepared for, and I'll take it in stride as they come. So I do believe that there will be people, there are people who will try to make it as difficult a journey for me as possible. But again, I think the Grenadian people are tuned in because now more than ever before, we are under a curfew, and then people are home and they're listening. So
Yes.
they're tuned in and they're hearing what is taking place. And and the thing about it, it's not only in America and in Canada, and there are so many places now and so much tension in the air that people are just sitting in terms of the anger and frustration and where they are. So again, we have to tread carefully moving forward with these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, guys, we're speaking live here with the opposition leader, Mr. Tobias Clement. And I'm seeing a lot of questions in the chat room as it relates to his current position. Someone is asking, "Are you still a MP?"
Yes, I am. I mean, I have not resigned from Parliament. I resigned from the party. So I do have. I'm the MP for St. George Northeast. I was elected by the people to serve the in the Parliament on their behalf to speak truth to power and to hold government and everybody responsible. And I think I have been doing that over the years. And it is one thing to speak to somebody, Mikey, but it is another thing to
No,
speak truth
it's
to
Junior.
power.
It's Junior.
Junior, yeah, Junior, and to speak truth to power. And I will always speak truth to power, and that is what. And sometimes it may not get you anywhere, but like I said to you the last time, Martin Luther King in his writing said that you would not remember the words of your enemies, but what you will remember is the silence of your friends.
Right.
And I do believe that there are people who should stand up and speak out that are close to leadership and they're not doing it.
Right, understand. But a lot of people would question, and a lot of people did question. I even heard the Prime Minister made note of it as to the timing that you decided to move into that seat. Was it
Well, I mean,
strategic, or is there anything strategic about the timing?
well, listen, resigned from NNP on November 20th, and I approached the Governor General on the 30th of March, which is
Right,
probably almost 3 months. So yes, I deliberate because I remember I would have to appoint senators. So that was a deliberation that must be done and must be done right. The thing about it, I mean, the prime minister always mention what time is right for any purpose, as if he has the authority or knowledge of everything. But here we have, in the middle of COVID-19, you are now looking at it this way, and I'm seeing you put forward a stimulus package with all these monies to be spent or to be given out. And where is the accountability? Where is the checks and balances? What I say, I mean, yes, it is necessary. Maybe it is just a drop in the bucket. Maybe it is not even enough. Because in Grenada today, a lot of people who maybe should get did not get, and who should get what did not get. So a lot of people are calling and querying. But what I say, I do not, as being in the opposition now and as chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, I could ask for the numbers. Let me see. And this is what I said in Parliament. I
right,
do not care how much money, but I want to see where it goes, because again, it is taxpayers' money, and we have a way of money is just evaporating. But I'm also hearing about investigation that is going on in terms of the monies that were given and who should receive it, did not receive it. And that was one of my point of concern. And here we are. Well, for the last week or so, we have seen the Prime Minister more than ever before. And people were wondering where was his leadership during the time of lockdown. In some cases, his silence was deafening. But all of a sudden, he's almost on a blitz show. Every talk show in Grenada and everywhere for the last few days he was there. So you wonder now, well, what is going on? Is that a new rebirth? So it's something to behold. But don't tell me that it was not the right time. The question is, uh,
Junior.
when will be Junior? When will
Yeah.
be the right time for him? It is never the right time. It would never be the right time. But in terms of what you do and in terms of what I do or the Grenadian people do should not be on the Prime Minister's timing. If it is on his timing, that would never happen. Because in some circles, I think they were just hoping that, when you're playing the football game, they were just hoping that I would just run out the clock and the time pass and I go my way and don't rock the boat. But
Yeah.
in democracy, sometimes the boats need to be rocked so that people can catch themselves. Imagine, and I have come to believe, Junior, that a government without an opposition, a government without checks and balances can become a dangerous thing to itself. And I think I have seen some of that happening in Grenada, where we treat Grenada as if Grenada belongs to us, like somebody left it on a wheel for us or something. But it should be, and it must be about the people's business first and foremost. And when that is done, then your duty towards man and country would have been done. That
Yeah.
you put the country and the people first.
You mentioned something earlier, and I want to get a little bit deeper into it, right? I know we have a lot of things to talk about, and I know the timing is kind of winding down as well. But you mentioned something that I want you to touch on to go deeper in. You mentioned about money evaporating. What exactly are you talking about? What money that's
But
evaporating? What is
look
it?
at it that way. I've received a number of calls from people who work in the hotel industry, from bus drivers, from other fisher folks, this, that. Some people are saying they file papers, they file once, they file twice. Some people get, some people did not get. Some people say, well, they may not have any more monies. But did we reach the people that supposed to be rich with those monies that were given, or the stimulus package or the help that was given to people? And at this point, I do believe that in the coming days and weeks, you may hear about investigation as to, because for instance, in some cases, they said, okay, government will partner to give 40%, what have you. And then the institution will give the others. In some cases, workers are complaining they did not get that 40%, they got 20%. Then we have this big issue now with NIS in terms of monies. NIS come up with 20 or $10 million to give unemployment benefit. I got a call from a couple businessmen, and I got a call from people who work within the NIS structure, and they said to me, Mr. Clement, giving unemployment benefit is not part of the charter of NIS. So NIS can be taken to court because NIS is almost like a retirement fund, a 401k. The only charter that NIS have is to give retirement benefit and to sick leave benefit or maternity paternity benefit, but
Right.
not unemployment benefit. So how did they come up with that construct to give unemployment benefit across the board? Because I asked the question, suppose you're paying into NIS and you're paying the maximum amount. and I'm paying into NIS and I'm paying maybe what $20 a month. At the end of the day, unemployed, we both are unemployed, but all of us together get $330. I mean, where the question that I have to, and I will ask, where did NIS get the monies to give unemployment benefit? Because people are saying now that they invest into NIS as part of the deduction from the payroll check, so that it could be invested, so that when they retire, they have a little nest egg there. But if you dip into that nest egg to pay unemployment benefit, then something is wrong with that construct. And a lot of people are crying out that something is definitely wrong with that construct, because in the law, it is not, again, and I emphasize, it is not part of the laws that govern NIS. It is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that must have to be, and these things, Junior, must be spoken about. Imagine if you had no opposition to talk and to bring up this thing. Well, and I know coming soon with me right now, you'll talk about the impasse with the with the public transportation in Grenada.
Yeah, that's definitely a topic there. But with the NIS and the retirement, I want to just finish on that topic there. Would there be a pension for, say, the 40-50% of the population who are paid into NIS? Would there be a retirement for them by the time they reach retirement age? You think?
Well, there should be, and there are two things that happen, Junior. Just before COVID lockdown, NIS was going to raise the contribution by 1%.
Yeah.
And incrementally, they were going to also raise retirement age from 60 up to 65. Now, I think the actuary review was done in 2007, and NIS is looking at the funds that are available to them and what is there. NIS is in trouble. This is why they were moving the benefit up by 1%, and also the retirement age, so that they can extend the life. Now, the monies or the contributions that are made is from people's payroll check. NIS is supposed to take these monies and invest it prudently. Well, you know about 401k. It is invested, and you invest in companies and so forth. It seems to me that some of this investment did not pan out to anything. In some cases, investment brought about losses. So now that NIS is in this situation, that was the reason why. And two things happened there. One, because of COVID-19, a hold was placed on raising that contribution by 1%. Two, usually NIS would depend on the contributions too from workers now to help to reach that retirement benefit, the amount. But it seems like over the last 3 months, that contribution almost melt away, because a lot of people were not working. So the contribution dropped. So now NIS probably is the amount that they would receive on a monthly basis, maybe drop by 50% or more. How will they make up that now in order to pay those people the retirement benefits that are retired? And yet now you're asking them to pay unemployment benefit of $10 million over what, 3 months, 300, where maybe, and I hope that that money comes from government and not from the little nest egg that NIS put away for retirement benefits.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely touch on that. Hold on, let me just take a quick station break here. You're watching Right Along Live, and we're talking with Mr. Tobias Clement, the opposition leader there in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We're gonna talk in the next segment. I want to talk about the bus men in pass and what's happening right now. They had a press conference today. A lot was said. We're gonna touch on that, and we'll touch a little bit more on NIS and a lot more things, including the COVID-19 and how it was handled. and what is in place for the reopening of Grenada, what the opposition leader think about that. So let's take a quick break right here, and we'll be right back. You're watching Ride Along Live.
Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count.
Welcome back, guys. We are live here. I'm outdoors today because I'm getting ready to show you guys. After this program, I'm going to be touring around Brooklyn a little bit as we look at some of the protests that's happening in my immediate area. But today we're talking to Mr. Tobias Clement, the opposition leader there in Grenada. And we're looking at your comment as well. My next question to you, Mr. Clement, it has to do with the stimulus, right? The stimulus, I mean, a lot has been promised in that stimulus package. Monies for folks in that industry, right? Where is that money coming from? And is it loans? Is it grants? And is it something that the country have to pay back? Or where is that money coming from?
Well, the truth about it, I believe, in terms of budgeting, they have. I think after Ivan, that facility for spending emergency funds have always been in the budget. But the question is, will it be enough so that it is not, at this point in time, grants are very, very difficult to come by. Because the truth about it, our position now in COVID-19 is not as it was when Hurricane Ivan hit. This time, we're all in this thing together. Whether you're the great United States, England, Canada, Russia, China, everybody is in it. And look at the economy of these countries. So everybody now is trying hard as much as they can to see how they can put things together to start the economy going again, so that people would get back to work and make a daily bread and to get back on the feet. But I can tell you that I know some of the monies that was given in terms of from the Caribbean Development Bank and from the IMF and the World Bank, and it's probably it is loan that will have to be paid back, although the interest might be very low. But then we know how that goes in terms of paying back this loan. So, and I think a few of the Caribbean countries had to subscribe to the IMF in terms of getting monies and facilities so that the country's economy can be at least be put to that way. When I say this, I will not make any excuse for the government, but before COVID-19, the situation was that government was able to meet its wage bill, pay make its responsibility to foreign, local, and all entities. So we can see now that hiccup there. It's a big one in terms of COVID-19 in government meeting its expenditure locally and internationally. And I believe probably they might just get a little pass for sometimes, just as the banks in Grenada, where they have a moratorium on paying your loans and so forth. That is understandable. And it is the same thing with government, because after all, the revenues that government collect is from economic activities at home, especially. And when people are not working and things are not taking place, the hotel industry is down, then you find that the amount of revenues that government should collect, they will not collect it. So government all over the world, all over the Caribbean especially, will be hard strapped for cash.
Yeah, and, because again, we're looking at the SGU. They say that it's 32% of the GDP of the country,
25%, or somewhere around there,
right? And then you look at airline, the airports are down, the cruise ship industry is down. So where is the money coming from? I mean, they
And hence, and there goes probably another debate that we will have to have, because in terms of the what the main pillars of the Grenada economy now, we do not have control over that. That was tourism, and we have seen how many times we have been hit with tourism. But in the midst of lockdown and the coronavirus, the Prime Minister come to announce that the building of new hotels and so forth and so on, as if where you build it when? Now, when around the world right now, people are just fighting to survive. When is the tourist season going to start back in earnest for tourists to start coming back to the shows in numbers as they used to? I believe, I honestly believe that we ought to think about where we are and go back to the position of what we have control over,
yeah.
and that is agriculture. Look, for instance, I read a few weeks ago that the government of Pakistan announced a stimulus package. Imran Khan, the cricketer, if you remember, he's now
Mhm.
the prime minister of Pakistan, and that package was 9 billion US dollars. And you know what he says? That is to make Pakistan again,
Mhm.
putting young people to work back in the agriculture industry, replanting Pakistan, and in a serious way. Have we considered that in Grenada? No.
Right.
And but I think what has happened, Junior, over the past few weeks, I have seen Grenadians on their own, without any initiative from government, start clearing up lands and cutting down and fucking up, so that people now realizing that, hey, I I got to go back to the grassroots
Right.
and to grow my own food. So a lot of that is taking place now. Although they have some difficulties, because I mean they're clearing up and they need to get rid of some of the debris, and they have no permission to burn, and so government have to step in and help those people now who are going back to the land, so that they can maybe be self-employed and to start feeding themselves and feeding the nation.
Yeah. Would you support any proposal as a opposition leader? Would you support any proposal to add additional taxation on the backs of the people of Grenada, to at least bring us back into compliance with some of the loans, and in order to boost, to pay some of the debts that government would have gotten in during this COVID time? Would you support that measure?
At this point in time, how can the thing about it, Junior, today, in a serious way, we have a lot of Grenadian unemployed. And who are you going to tax? I mean, probably the hotel industry alone, maybe you're talking about 2 to 5 thousand workers. The fishermen, a lot of people are out of a daily bread, and you're talking now that some em, em, employers are at this point in time considering rotating workers, considering following some workers, because business in Grenada is down, and you cannot continue to operate your business and have salaries to pay and overhead to pay when there is no transaction taking place. So
True.
again, how could you at this point? I don't think, honestly, in my opinion, I don't think government can tax the way out of that. What you have to do in order to stimulate activity in the country, you would have to think and rethink your industries that can work for you. I mean,
Which is
look look at St. Vincent. In terms of COVID-19, although St. Vincent was on lockdown, export did not stop. Grenada stopped all export, but yet planes were coming into Grenada, dropping off stuff and going back empty. I had I was on one program with the soursop farmers. The COVID strike at the height of the soursop season. Junior, in March, 40,000 pounds of sauerkraut per week that usually was exported was left to rot. I spoke to farmers with 3 acres and 5 acres of soursop and small farmers that it was almost bringing them to tears that the soursop at the peak of the season at 40,000 pounds of soursop per week were not exported. So right now the season is going out, so they might have lost that entire season. Again, what do we export? We export tuna. While other countries like St. Vincent and Trinidad were exporting tuna, Grenada lock off all export. And the tuna export for the fishermen is one of the biggest export product in Grenada today. But yet that too was shut off. And so we are saying we have to put back this engine to work. Well, I feel it for the sort of farmers that they have lost that season. The fishermen can always go and pick up from where they left off. But if you know, in terms of farming, you may have to wait for the next season again. So those of us who have the bills to pay and other stuff, they just cannot meet it because what was meted out to them. There was a position in Grenada here where we almost lost our poultry industry too, because I mean, yes, there was COVID-19 in the agro plant, and the farmers had to beg and plead. I mean, even before some feed was brought back, and well, now the place is sanitized, and so they can go back. But I know of farmers, poultry farmers, who have lost the birds, and some of them were at wit's end. For instance, I know a friend of mine that had to go to the supermarket and buy bags of rice and boil it in order to give to the chickens to survive until food can come to Grenada. Now, if you're feeding your chickens on rice, that's I mean, you cannot even break even. But just to keep them alive, so as to save something, then that was done in Grenada. I think honestly, we have to be serious about what we do. But you know what I sense? I sense, Junior, that in coming forward with some of the proposal, a lot of analysis was not done. It was just put it as you go. You know, you learn as you go, you correct your mistakes and you go on. But deep thinking and deep thought into what should be done. And the sad thing about it, this come and we are looking to open up back the country like everywhere else. But I have a feelings
Yes.
from the history of 1919 to 100 years ago to now. Remember the Spanish flu or swine flu came in 3 waves, but probably the first wave come to Grenada, it was nothing at all. But when we open up, maybe a second wave would come. Are we prepared for that?
Right. I wanted to talk about the preparation that the government, uh, the preparation for the COVID-19 and the response for COVID-19. I think we could get into that right now before we get into the busman situation. But do you think that enough was done to prepare for COVID-19? And do you think enough is being done and has been done at this point, where we are the other side of it, where we have, X amount of people who have recovered? It's stable at this point. Do you think that enough has been done and enough energy was put in?
Well, one of the things that I would commend in terms of our Grenadian people, because the call was out in order to follow protocol. And in a lot of cases, we can say that our Grenadian people behave themselves well because the spread of COVID-19 depend on the people that are involved, which is the Grenadian people. And in some cases, the jury is still out on it because now you're hearing reports of treatment of frontline workers, and some of them will not go back if a situation like that arise again. And we are looking, and I can say that we are lucky, that even some people believe that the lockdown came a little bit too late, but we were spared that we had no deaths because of COVID-19, and it did not cross the threshold of 25 or 50. So that is there now. What is going to happen in the future in terms of opening up? Yes, you might, and I do understand a lot of our brothers and sisters probably is booked to come back home, but what can be frightening is that do we have enough place that if they come back to quarantine them, to test them, to quarantine them for the 14 days that is required? What about the asymptomatic people who might be carrier of the virus, do not show any symptoms, but can spread it? It's something to consider. And I pray that all the necessary precautions are taken, the structures are put in place so that people can abide by the laws that that should be set, so that we do not have a second wave in Grenada whenever the time comes that the places open up, our borders are open up. And I think we have to hasten slowly and tread carefully, because again, with our already strained and meager resources, I think we can be in trouble if a second wave comes.
Yeah, absolutely right. Guys, we open up the phone line at this point. So if ever you guys want to call in, you could call in. The number you call is 718-701-5720. That's 718-701-5720. Speaking here with the opposition leader, Mr. Tobias Clement. Mr. Clement, let's talk about the busmen. Today they had this press conference. The busmen are, the Grand Anse Bus Owners Association are proposing to have an increase of 50 cents, right? Um, Based on the fact that they're saying that they haven't increased their rates for almost 15 years. Everything else rise, gas price rise, everything went up except bus prices. Do you think that they're right in that plea to proposal? Do you support them?
I support the Granans Bus Association and the bus drivers in Grenada because I believe that they were given a raw deal. Now look at it. Most developed countries, developing countries, every all these countries have a public transportation system that
Yes.
is administered by the government. Only Grenada do not have a public transportation system. Why? Because maybe it is too expensive to operate. So we put the onus on the private bus owners. And what we do, we peg them under certain conditions they can operate in. And it's only as they begin to talk and the information comes out that you see what they're talking about. Now, for 15 years or more, that price of 250 was there, $2.50. Now, they look at it this way. 15 years ago, the cost of a bus was $70,000. Today, the cost of a bus is between $55,000 and $60,000. 15 years ago, they would have to pay $7,000 a year insurance. Today, they would have to pay up to $16,000 a year insurance. A quart of oil was $7. Now it is what, 20 something dollars. Gas was $7, $8. Now it's $14, $15. Everything else went up except the 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 the, the, the fare for the bus. But not only that, because of COVID-19 and protocol that is put in place, the buses used to operate at a trip maybe $45. Now you tell them that they can only have 10 persons on the bus. So that $45 now reduced to $25.
Well, they
And
argue in the press conference and say in how they calculate it is not even 10, it's 8.
eight, right. So I
In
mean,
terms of how God calculated it today, it shows that
so
it's 8 passengers, but they said it
so
was 10.
so that was well, now they understand that the 10 people on the bus include the driver and the conductor, so it's 8 passengers. So a trip now would be $20. And you have all this overhead costs. I did not realize, Junior, that the bus insurance was $16,000 a year. And you look at all the other expenses that goes with the fuel and And now you have to buy sanitizers. You must pay because every bus, regardless if you're running a route that you only have 2 trips per day, you must have a conductor. So you have to
Yeah.
pay a conductor. So in some instances, you're only working to pay the conductor. You can buy gas, you can, and this must be looked at. When on the other hand, I'm looking at it, we have transportation in and out of Grenada. All the airlines that come into Grenada is subsidized. All public transportation all over the world is subsidized. Here you let the private owners operate as if they're public transport, but they're not subsidized. And yet the extra burden that is placed on them, they cannot survive. I think in my speaking to one of the bus drivers from Granance, he says, Mr. Clement, almost every day we are in the court and we have to pay court fees because we cannot stop hustling because we have to make sure that we meet the demands of the bank and the insurance and everything else. So it's almost become a hustle to survive. Oh my goodness. And then and to think about it, what took the cake for some of us in when it was revealed that the same buses were used during the lockdown to transport essential workers. And what they were paid $17 and 20 something dollars a trip. And they
Yeah.
wanted them to accept that. And not only that, imagine that the same buses that were transporting essential workers, after all, you would have wear and tear. So the mechanics shops were closed. So the same bus drivers who were transporting essential workers had to hide to go to the mechanic to repair the bus so that they could transport. I mean, it's almost laughable.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost laughable and unbelievable. And the busmen were just sitting on that day, and and you ask them, well, what it is. The government gave them that, and that is what the government gave them. No negotiation. Well, I understand tomorrow they will go into negotiations with them, and I hope the bossmen stand the ground and don't accept, because when you accept it, maybe some of them will just have to fold. Because even at this point in time, I asked another question. Some of them that were not running for the last 2, 3 months, I do not know if insurance work out anything with them, but they would still have to pay the insurance that they have to pay. You know, in some jurisdiction and in some countries, if you are not operating, then the insurance might cut your costs or reduce your costs. It doesn't happen like that in Grenada. Your fee for the year is your fee for the year. I mean, at $160,000, if you have to pay the bank, you have to hustle. And operating at a trip of $20, you would not survive. I
Right.
think it is very unfair. It is very unfair to the owners and bus drivers to have that there at this point in time under these conditions. I mean, somebody ought to step up and say, let us do the math. Because you can't just take out a figure off 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 your head and say this is for it. But after all, this is what this is a financial issue. So do the calculations and let them get something reasonable that is worth the effort. But because it is dollars and cents, Junior, it must be calculated. But don't tell me that I work for the 3 months I make 100 trip and you just tell me $3,000 is what I'm giving you and that is it. Sign a paper that government owes you nothing. Was the math done? And the only
Right.
how that can be justified is if the math is done and you come up with an amicable conclusion that is fair to everybody.
Right. I guess the optics of it, right? And I saw the press conference today, and I fully understand where the busmen are coming from. I guess the optics, what the public, some folks in public are saying, is just the timing. At this point, where a lot of people have been out of work, people are not earning an income as they was before. A lot of people being laid off, and here we are increasing bus prices. Um, So it's just the optics, it's just the timing that a lot of people
This-
are disgruntled about. But I understand exactly where they're coming from.
But if it is not there, can government subsidize? Okay, you do not want to increase the bus fare, but can government subsidize the public transportation so that at least the busmen can at least break even? Today, under these conditions, they are not breaking even. I would not have a bus and operate on the road, and I cannot even pay the cost of operating. And that is what is before them. And they would not have asked for an increase if that was not placed before them. Now you ask them to operate with 8 or 10 passengers. It just cannot cut it.
Yeah,
It
true.
just cannot cut. So if they ask for gas rebate, no, they can't get it. Every time they goes to the terminal, the bus terminal, they have to pay a $2. That cannot be waived. You're not providing them with subsidies. You tell them no increase of 50 cents. So what should they do? They
Yeah.
have no other. Well, I mean, what I say, sit down and come up with an amicable solution so that maybe rebate on the gas, maybe they don't have to pay the $2 every time they go to the terminal, or maybe government will provide subsidies, or even those that work during COVID-19 lockdown, pay them so that at least they can take care of themselves and their family. I think it was heartbreaking to know that some of them who worked and had to repair the bus had to get the mechanic to hide, you know, to hide to repair the buses that is transporting essential workers. I think it's embarrassing and it is shameful.
Right, right, right. Tomorrow we're gonna have tomorrow Wednesday, one of the days we're finalizing the schedule. We're gonna have Gart and the folks from the Granans Boss Owners Association on the program. We can get a chance to talk to them so they could chat with us a bit
Yes,
and for some of their
I do believe
grievances.
so. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
let the bus association come and air their grievances, and people will would empathize with them and see what they're coming from. I mean, I think some people in high position put it out there that the bus owners and bus drivers are greedy, but it is not a greedy thing if you're operating and you're operating at a loss, and when you are doing the public what they're doing in Grenada in terms of transportation is what public transportation in other countries does that is heavily subsidized by government. Hence the reason why there is no public transport that is owned and operated by government in Grenada because government do not want that cost. It is too expensive for them. So you put it on the small man and on the poor man, but that is not right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Guys, again, we open up the phone lines. We're a little bit over our time. We're going to go for another 5 minutes and open it up for you if you're going to chat with us. 718-701-5720. That's 718-701-5720. We're chatting here with Tobias Clement. He's the leader, the opposition leader there in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And we did speak about having the executive of the Granada's Bus Owners Association on the program. That will be confirmed either for tomorrow or on Wednesday. We'll tell you guys, we'll post it so you guys could get a chance to talk with them here live on the program. I guess the other angle that we could touch on, Mr. Clement, is going forward, the other side of COVID, development, and where do you see Grenada going, or what would you propose that could boost the economy, that could put us on a path to development, where there's not, of course, everybody's projecting a downward turn in the economy all over the world. But what could we do? What would you propose that we could do as a people to bring us at least profitable, or at least bring some kind of stability in our economy?
Well, I have already mentioned that you look at St. Vincent, and during the lockdown and for the last, was it March and April, St. Vincent was able to boost export by I think 45%. But the question is, what do we have control over? We have control over our space here in Grenada. So what we have to do, we have to come up with mechanism to put our space and our people back to work. I was reading an article on CNN a few weeks ago where they were showing that was it the waitress in some restaurant in England and an engineer and a doctor went back to work in the fields because the migrant workers that would reap the crops in England, they could not come. So rather than stay at home, you had the engineer, you had the doctor, you had the hotel worker, and everybody went and started working. And so they were able to and some of them are still there. But at the same time, in Grenada, we are in the midst of COVID-19. The leadership of our country announced this big speech, and people prepared, and maybe Junior, you listened to it also. And lo and behold, he talked about new investment in the hotel industry, and they're gonna build this and gonna build this 400 room and this and that and the other. And people were absolutely shocked as to where did that come from now? We are talking Grenada here. The question is, the world right now is very depressed in terms of funds. People disposable incomes are not as what it used to be because a lot of them have to catch themselves back. Look at the United States. We saw long lines for the food banks and so forth. And will people have that disposable income in mass to come back to the islands for a vacation and to boost that hotel industry? I say no. COVID-19, what it has done, it has stripped our country bare to let us know this should be a wake-up call. We in this little country of ours should not go back to business as usual. We must find a different path of development. And I would propose that that development must be agriculture based. The details is to come. I can tell you that, Junior.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
yeah, I can tell you that. And this is where we have, because that is what we have control over. Look, you might have heard that in July, August coming this year, St. George's University will not open back as usual. That semester will be done as the last half of this semester online. So the max influx of students, 4,000 of them would not come back into Grenada in August or September. So what do we do? We have to
yeah,
look inwards now. Every
yeah,
other country now is looking inwards, but
yeah.
our leadership is still talking about building hotels. Will you be able to fill the room stock that you have now for the next year or two? Well, I would hope for the best and say, well, maybe yes. If somewhere they can get it, fine. Maybe that what they would subsidize the airline industry so much that airfare might go right down because it's subsidized by the government of Grenada as per usual. So
But I
and
think
this,
I think one of the boom that we could look at is a lot of people are now thinking about relocating, moving back to Grenada. People will see the Caribbean as a safe haven because what has been happening, we see the US has been hit tremendously. And almost all of my friends that I've spoken to, the first thing that they say, they can't wait to jump on a plane and go home.
well,
They,
while that might be so, but at the same time, I can ask the question, what is our food input bill? Can we
yes.
not can we not in Grenada begin to grow our own food so that we can supply ourselves and people who come back home? I, and you see what I'm saying? We will have to look inwards in terms of agriculture, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of industry, in terms of energy, in terms of fishing, in terms of our creativity.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's the fact that we need to, the country as a whole, government as a whole, need to look at boosting our agricultural resources. And the last time we had the minister of tourism here, she spoke a lot about agriculture. I even said to her, I said, right now you sound like the minister of agriculture. she said they both coordinate a lot together, which means that if tourism and agriculture is partnering together, a lot of resources are going back to agriculture. It means that it would boost that sector. Probably back when how it was 15, 20 years ago, when I remember coconut, mega, and banana, um, being happy to go down in the back of my yard and round up a whole bunch of nutmeg and know I could go and make a $20 or $30 from it 20 years ago or so. That might come back. Well, it's not immediate, but it would come back. But I think they have to invest in it and put resources in place. But I definitely agree with you. Agriculture is the way. Agriculture is the way for the future, and probably not so much tourism. And I think the minister agreed on that as well.
Well, I would wait for that day, and I would gladly support that day when we have that initiative to look inward, so that all our people could take part in the development of our country.
Absolutely, absolutely. Mr. Tobias Clement, thank you so much for joining us here on the program. Any last word you want to leave with, sir?
Well, I would thank you for having me, and I would want to shout out my friends and family in the diaspora in New York City, in the United States. And again, I would say that this is not ordinary time, and people have to now be their neighbor's keeper and be mindful of your position, social distancing, and make sure you wear your mask. And if you don't have to go out, go out. Then probably on another day we might talk about the racial divide in America, and to urge all our friends and family to keep safe, and as much as possible be a law-abiding citizen. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless all your listeners and viewers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Tobias Clement, for taking the time to chat with us. Guys, as I said earlier today, I'm in Brooklyn right now. When I started, this location here was the site of a protest that was happening right behind me at Grand Army Plaza. In the duration of the program, I was thinking I was going to go and see what's happening, but for some reason, it all vanished. I'm not sure where they are right now. But we're in Brooklyn for a little bit. I'm gonna stay away, guys. I'm not gonna get too deep into the crowd, but I wanna feel the temperature a little bit here in Brooklyn. It's been really it's been getting hot, and also it's been getting a little bit hot in Queens as well. So we're gonna be in Brooklyn for a little bit, feeling the temperature, and I'll come live back again with you guys a little bit later. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of our program today. Thanks to our Master Control for doing a great job. Thanks to Deanne Fraser, our moderator. Thanks for all the questions, guys. Paula, I see you. Lindy, I see you. Camilla, Andrea, Tim, Tom. I even saw Paula. Yes, Paula, big up yourself. Paul, Hasford, Julian, George, Deanne, everyone there. Thank you so much. Christine, thank you so much as well. Guys, keep your notification on. I'll be back again a little bit later in Brooklyn live. Catch you guys again. Bye-bye. Good night.
Hey, did you know that the census is due this year on April 1st? And guess what? This time we can finally count as Caribbean. This year, all you have to do is 1. Check the race box, and 2. Write in your country of birth or ancestry. You can answer by the paper form, online, or by phone. Everybody counts in Census 2020. So count as Caribbean. Yes, we count. Can answer by